持名光明一層神道大仙観が差仏最小可動生じ民不下脱不正上位解任無尽如世三昧知恵以上公正特仏不行士官一切空空一切大安慶始無仏百千億万無量大小衆如五者供養一切使徒小仏不如愚道賢長不逆非如五者小仏世界不不影無臭節道光明師匠遠視小国行勢精進一時難量量が差仏国土第一公衆奇妙道場調節国如内容任務闘争がと愛民道達一切自母大小心通症状意図過国慶楽はの公仏神妙世が師匠大塚の意力少々欲自母生存知恵無下浄土子孫知が信行けど心死食毒中家業精進臨終不見ナマンダ Naman davatsu naman davatsu naman davatsu naman davatsu naman davatsu naman davatsu naman. Okay. Please join me in the Gatha, singing of the Gatha of Tsuicho no Uta, verses 1 and 2, and this can be found on page 222 of the service book. And this will be followed by the reading of the three treasures, which can be found on page 2. Please stand. Sorry. Three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we should be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord, in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Please be seated. Okay, so at this time, I just wanted to give a short Dharma message for today's Shotsuki Memorial Service. And to begin my message, will you please join me by placing your palms together in Gassho as I share a verse from the sutra that we just chanted, Sambutsuke. Tathagata's transcendent appearance has no comparison in all the world. The whole universe vibrates with the great sound of your enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, so for today's message, I was inspired by the larger sutra and actually by one of my temple members from my other temple from Walnut Grove Buddhist Church. And I was inspired by this verse from Sambutsuge. In our service book, it actually has a overview that describes Sambutsuge as verses in which a student Bodhisattva Dhammakara, expresses their own desire to their teacher, Buddha Lokeshvara Raja, to attain Buddhahood, and this student's heartfelt determination to accomplish this goal for the sake of saving all sentient beings from their suffering. So I shared different section of this particular sutra in my Dharma messages before, and I seem to be going back to it quite often because there's points in it that I'm really drawn to depending on what I'm talking about for a particular sermon or Dharma message. And in this particular section of the sutra, the student is praising and revering their teacher, noting how the teacher's appearance doesn't have any comparison in the world. In addition, the teacher's awakening and enlightenment is a beautiful sound that reverberates and echoes around the universe. And this passage actually reminded me of my temple member, Mrs. Sakata, at Walnut Grove. So just like here in Stockton, Walnut Grove also observed the Obon, Hatsubon, which is the first Obon service after a loved one's passing. And they actually have their own little Obon Odori as well. And how many of you have been to Walnut Grove before? Okay, like maybe 4 of us, 5 of us. So Walnut Grove, it's on the Delta. It's a beautiful little temple on the Delta going towards Sacramento. And they're a small but very mighty temple. They have temple members who have been there for generations, some members who actually live out of town but still come back to their home temple of Walnut Grove because that's how dedicated and really attached to that temple. And even on different fundraising opportunities, not just the temple members, but the members of Walnut Grove itself, they come and help. And they're not even Buddhist or members of our temple, but they'll come and help Walnut Grove. And can you imagine, maybe, I think on our membership list, we probably have like 50 people who are members, but this is where I have to toot their horn because they were able to cook 1,000 chicken teriyakis with a small temple, like 50 members. But I think this just goes to show the community involvement that they also have as well. So we had our annual Obono Dori during the summer at Walnut Grove, and I still recall being able to come together to dance with our temple members, the very traditional Japanese folk dances, and memorying of friends and loved ones who had passed away. And this particular Obon was the Hatsubon, again, the first Obon since Mrs. Sakata's passing. And while I was sitting there with her daughter, I just was thinking about Mrs. Sakata and how kind she was to me. And I had only known her for maybe 4 years or so. I was assigned to Walnut Grove when I was assigned here at the temple in July 2020. And part of that time, too, we were still not out of the pandemic, so the temple was closed. But even though I've only met Mrs. Sakata and had known her for a short time, she really left an impression on my heart and mind. And so I was thinking about her at that time as I was sitting with her daughter Janet, and I turned to her and I said, I really miss your mom. And I believe that this is what Obono Dori is about. It's honoring and remembering our friends and loved ones who have passed away while reminiscing on what makes them so very special. So I think that especially my Walnut Grove Temple members will agree with me when I say that one of the great qualities that Mrs. Sakata had, which made her so special, was that she wholeheartedly chanted during the sutra chanting. And she was part of a very small but core group of the temple ladies who would sit together, would sit on the right-hand side of me, fairly close to the front, and they could be always seen, and I could always hear them, especially Mrs. Sakata. And at the time when Mrs. Sakata was still alive, I didn't have a microphone in the altar area. And so sometimes my voice might get a little lost, but our temple was small enough, so I think everybody could hear me. However, I think the ladies that would sit together, they would have varying abilities of hearing, and so sometimes they would be chanting really loud, maybe on a totally different line, but they wholeheartedly chanted, and I love that about that particular group. So again, they might be a little bit out of sync with one another, but that's what made the chanting so very special. And Mrs. Sakata's voice, it was kind of rough and raspy, but I can always hear her. I could always hear her. And I think this is something that I shared with their family at their family memorial service. Maybe it's one of those things about our loved ones. We can think about many different qualities about them. Perhaps maybe the way that they laughed, or maybe the fashion sense that they might have had. In my mom's case, it was her spiky hairdo, I think, that everybody remembers. And for my mom in particular too, it was a certain perfumed lotion that she would wear. And after she passed away, I remember smelling it, and all of these memories just came flooding back, because I think scent and memories are very connected to one another. But for me, I think in regards to Mrs. Sakata, it was her voice and her chanting. But not only her voice, but the care and concern that she always expressed to me whenever I saw her at the temple. Especially when we were concluding services and I would be getting ready to get on my way home, she would always say, "Sensei, did you get some fruit from the osonae, from the altar? Oh, did you want to delay too?" So sometimes she would tell me that over and over again. Make sure you drive home safely. Make sure you take some fruit home. Make sure you take some pastries home. But I didn't mind at all. It's just, I think, again, this expression of care and concern that really touched me every single time that we would say our goodbyes. So in this particular Dharma message, again, I shared from Sambutsuge. And again, it's stated, Tathagata, who is Amida Buddha, we reference Amida Buddha as Tathagata, transcendent appearance has no comparison in all the world. The whole universe vibrates with the great sound of your enlightenment. And so I think in this case, when we think about our loved ones and our friends who have passed away, we can think about their appearance and everything that we miss and we love and what made them so special. And also perhaps even their voices and the care and concern that I mentioned that they expressed through their voice. And I was mentioning that now Mrs. Sakata, she is an awakened being or a Buddha. And her voice, even though it cannot be heard any longer, I think Janet and her brother and all of the people that knew Mrs. Sakata can still hear her voice calling us from the Pure Land, saying, "You take care, but I'm always with you. And even though I'm not here physically, I'm still with you and I'm still guiding you. I'm making sure that you're okay, making sure that you get home safely, and I want to make sure that you're taken care of too." And in this particular verse too, it reminded me of my mom, and shortly after when she passed away as well. So many of you might know that my mom served as the secretary here at the Buddhist Church before her passing. And during that time in the early 2000s, we still had an answering machine here at the temple. And I think it was probably an answering machine with the small little cassette. And her voice was the voice behind the answering machine. And after she had passed away, I would secretly at nighttime, I would call the office. And I would just want to listen to her voice. And at the time, I had my own telephone line in my room, so I would be able to call whenever I wanted to. And I was actually really sad when the message was erased, and it was somebody else's voice at the time. And my mom has been gone for 20 years. It's been 20 years in September. And it wasn't until I believe it was this year that my sister Tiffany admitted that she used to call the office too. And she never told me that, even during these whole 20 years that our mom has been gone. But I think she and I both share the same sentiment, that we just wanted to hear our mom's voice one more time, and just to remember what she sounded like, because it's been so very long. But again, I think what we can all remember with all of our loved ones, that just like in Sambutsuge, the whole universe is vibrating with the great sound of our loved one and our friends' enlightenment. That even though, again, they're not here, we can probably still feel their presence and hear their presence in our lives. And that maybe it's something that we say that reminds us of the way in which our parents said it, or something that maybe a laugh that might sound like your parents' laugh or your loved one's laugh. So again, I think although it's comforting to be able to see pictures and maybe see different videos of them and to hear their voice once again, I hope it continues to bring you some comfort to know that our loved ones, they could be heard at any moment of our lives. And especially from the Jodo Shinchi perspective, when we put our palms together and say Namo Amida Butsu, we're answering Amida Buddha's call to us and placing our palms together with deep gratitude, not only for Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion in our lives, but also saying and expressing this deep gratitude to our loved ones as well, as they continue to encourage us and to continue to express their love and care from the Pure Land to each and every one of us, just like Mrs. Sakata is continuing to do to her family and to the family or Sangha at the Walnut Grove Buddhist Church. So thank you for letting me share just a few thoughts and feelings regarding this particular verse of Sambutsuge, and of course sharing just a little bit about Mrs. Sakata and of course my mom as well. So to conclude my message, will you please join me once again in Gassho? Tathagata's transcendent appearance has no comparison in all the world. The whole universe vibrates with the great sound of your enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Okay, so before we conclude, can we do two? Can you please join me in standing if that's comfortable for you? If not, you can continue to sit for one last gatha ondoksan in gratitude on page 197 of our service book. Okay, please join me in Gassho. May we all truly reflect with gratitude and humility on that which we have been allowed to receive through the teachings of the Buddha. May we always endeavor to listen intently with our fellow beings to the summoning voice of Amida Buddha, and together as one be born in Amida's Pure Land. With a radiant and boundless mind, may we each regard all living beings with loving kindness without limit. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Please be seated. Okay, so that'll conclude today's service. Are there any additional announcements from anybody? No? Okay, so please join us again for our mochitsuki. If you need any order forms, they're also in the office, so please feel free to get your order forms in the office as well. Okay, so thank you again, everybody, for your kind attendance today, and please feel free to visit the Nokotsudo before you leave as well to visit your friends and family members, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Namandats, namandats, namandats. For a little bit, yeah, yeah.
I have to go set up.
Okay. If right, can you open it for? Okay.